Can I finally do my laundry now? What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Coulter Nuanez coming to you from the Northwest Motorsports Studio. We're back in studio. What a whirlwind it was. What a fun time it was. We're back from our tournament takeover, so we'll put a bow on what our experiences were like. A week in Boise, 4.5 days or so in San Diego, California, and now back here in Missoula, Montana for at least the next couple of months. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, and my travel partner the last couple of weeks. He's joining me in studio to wrap this thing up, this tournament takeover, and certainly fun, and couldn't have done it without all of our awesome sponsors. The Big Sky out of the NCAA tournament, so we'll talk about that. Why? Why does it seem as if the Big Skies teams, not only are they fighting an uphill battle, which many mid-major league champions are, but why does it seem like the Big Skies teams just never have a fighting shot? We'll get into that a little bit here in the Montana Basketball Hour off the top. We'll also give you some sound bites from Montana State's women's basketball team's loss in the first round of the NCAA tournament. That game didn't even tip till 2 hours after we were done with our show here Friday. So we'll hear from Trisha Binford plus a couple of the Stanford ladies on a sequence that I've never seen against the Big Sky Conference basketball team. A steal into a dunk that capped a 20-point run in the first quarter. All of those things I've never seen before. So we'll talk a little bit about both the uphill battles for the men's and women's leagues for the Big Sky Conference as the league continues to try to find some sort of relevance nationally, but it's eluding them. We'll also talk about some of the other teams we got a chance to see, both in person and just watching games around the country, and go over our brackets a little bit. Mine's busted. I know Riley's is busted. I think everybody's is busted at this point. I mean, St. Peter's over Kentucky. I think that after that, it's uphill sledding for us, too, trying to fill out a good bracket. And then we'll also talk about a couple news briefs from around the Big Sky. Coaches, comings and goings, a couple Big Sky Conference teams still in action. What's that mean for the league? Is that maybe the better route to go? Of course you want to make the NCAA tournament, but in terms of the long-term vision of your program, maybe playing in the CBI or the College Basketball Classic or whatever postseason tournament you might find yourself in, maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. We're also going to talk a little spring ball hour number 2, myself and Andrew Houghton, our producer here at ESPN Missoula, talk about some storylines for both the Grizz and the Bobcats. Bobcats open spring ball today, coming out of spring break, and the Grizz back from spring break, so they are back into spring ball as well. So we have some sound from Bobby Houck, Montana head coach, as well as Taylor Housewright, the offensive coordinator at Montana State, and Willie Matt Garza, the defensive coordinator there at MSU. And then, of course, because it's a Tuesday, we're just bumping it to hour number 2, but we will have our Treasure State Stars featuring some of the best individual performances from around the state of Montana. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio. If you want to stream the show, you want to listen live online on any of your mobile devices, you certainly can. 1029ESPN.com. Click on Listen Live, and you'll find the stream. You want to be a part of the show, you can always call us or text us, 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. It is a Taglieri Tuesday, but we're not doing our Taglieri giveaways this month because we're rolling all those gift cards into our bracket challenge prizes. So we will have free Taglieri for you, 2 different $50 gift cards for first and second place, respectively, in our bracket challenge. But no Taglieri call-in, although it remains, as always, a Taglieri Tuesday as well. Riley Corcoran joining me in studio, and thanks so much for, first of all, getting us back safe from Spokane yesterday, man. How you doing? You get some sleep last night?
I did. I'm still a little bit off. Waking up to sunshine certainly helped, too. Maybe we brought some of that back.
No question. I'm wearing my beach shirt today. I'm trying to get the sunshine going.
I like it. I like the mojo. No, it was so much fun. Thank you again for having me and all the sponsors for getting us there. But we had a day yesterday because we flew in and out because obviously – you don't know where you're going for the NCAA tournament until Selection Sunday. We were swapping texts right back and forth, but it was nearly impossible to get out of Missoula. We flew out of Spokane, pulled in about midnight, but you got to make a true 5-day trip out of it, and we made the most for sure. I'm really curious. Well, I got a little bit of the thoughts, but just for all the listeners out there, to get your take on San Diego. It was obviously, I've been to San Diego and been to the NCAA tournament. For you, it was your first time really in San Diego and first time experiencing a true NCAA tournament where you see momentum at one site. 6 games, you really could feel that. And I know we're going to get into it. We saw one of the games. It's hard to say it was the game, but one of the top 3 games of the entire weekend that was played. There were 48 games played over the weekend. We got to see 8 of them. Don't forget the bonus 2 on Thursday in Portland as well. Maybe we'll get into a Gonzaga-Arizona comparison later on, because I know folks are wanting that, and that's my only chance for my busted bracket is to have Gonzaga and Arizona in the title game. But no, absolute blast. Can't wait to break it down here in the next hour or so.
Montana Basketball Hours presented by the Advocates. If your life was turned upside down by an accident that wasn't your fault, the Advocates can help you. There's no fee until the Advocates recover a settlement for you, so you have nothing to lose. Call 406-640-4444 to talk to your advocate. Today, I thought San Diego was exceptionally cool. One of the best parts about our jobs is that it takes us all over the country. A lot of times, a lot of people love to travel internationally. I feel like I haven't traveled internationally nearly as much as most people because I'm almost always on the road in the American West, mostly. Sometimes we get to go to places like Harrisonburg, Virginia, or Huntsville, Texas, but mostly it's in the West. But I've been to most of the big cities in America on the west side now, all the big West Coast cities, to be sure. And I thought San Diego was my favorite one. I think it's less bustling. It has a slower pace to it, even though it is a big city. It's nothing like San Francisco or California in terms of the pace, which is a very good thing in my opinion. I know some people love the LA pace. When you go there for Dodgers games, I know you love just being there for a couple days. But I can actually see myself living in San Diego. I thought it was really cool. I think the architecture and the history there, being right on the marina, the Navy presence there is very apparent. The Hispanic presence there is very apparent. I thought the food was awesome. The seafood, it's second to none. And I just thought kind of the vibe. I told you and our other buddy that was with us for the trip that there was no real definitive archetype for the people there. You couldn't say that person's from San Diego. And that's a compliment. I thought that there was a lot of diversity to it, but it was a cool place to spend a few days. And I thought that the basketball arena, the NCAA tournament presentation was tremendous. VAS Arena is awesome on the San Diego State campus. What a cool campus that is, too. As we were talking, I mean, they're in the Mountain West. If they wanted to make a full effort and commit, I think they could go as high levels as they wanted.
Well, and that was one of my biggest takeaways being on campus, just seeing how they run everything. This is a Power 5 operation, and they have all of the pieces.
Well, it is from a basketball perspective. Yeah. That's a top 30 program, right?
And you really look at what they've been doing football-wise. Sure. I mean, they've been top 2 or 3 in the top 3 in the Mountain West every single year. That's argument for the fringe top 25. It seems like every year the Aztecs at least make an appearance. So they've got all the makings there. I love the arena as well. And for those, I'm sure they heard on Friday as well, but it's a mini pit in the sense of how you walk in at the top level and go down. Such a cool vibe, and the acoustics in there I felt are so tailored for college basketball and for a great setting like we got with 2 bands going back and forth. I know we want to talk about that. Well, we're in arenas a lot where you have one predominant fan base, whether it be the Cats or the Grizz, or when you're in a Big Sky arena, it's pretty predominant. There's one.
Sure.
We got to see a true atmosphere on Sunday night with TCU, the ultimate underdog that was making their historic appearance against Powerhouse Arizona. It basically was a home game for everyone that drove over there. It was really cool to see that dynamic as well, and I thought the arena was tailored for it as well.
Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Coulter Nuanez, Riley Corcoran coming to you from the Northwest Motorsports Studio. You can march into savings with Northwest Motorsports Markdown Madness all month long. Northwest Motorsport providing special APRs all March. Get a truckload of savings on the greatest selection of trucks, and more trucks at Northwest Motorsport. Visit them online today at nwmsrocks.com. Our tournament takeover, we're putting a bow on it because we're not going to be going to any other tournaments. But the games that we got to see, we actually got derailed and rerouted, and it turned out to be pretty good. As Riley's dad texted us, he said, you guys are sure good at taking the lemons and making it into lemonade. That's what we were trying to do. We got rerouted through Portland on our way to San Diego. We had a 5.5, 6 hour layover in the Portland airport. So we said, hey, let's go. Let's go down to the Moda Center and catch some games. So we got to see the second half of Boise State versus Memphis. And Boise State couldn't really handle the Tigers. That proved to be sort of prophetic of the handful then that Memphis would be for Gonzaga before Gonzaga rallied late and made it to their 7th straight Sweet 16. But then we watched the Zags as well. against a Georgia Southern team that gave Gonzaga a good swing in the first half. They were only down 2 at halftime, and then Gonzaga blitzed them and went on probably a 20-plus point spurt to win that game going away. So that was our first day. And then on Friday, we got to watch Montana State get dismantled by Texas Tech, 97-62, the final score in that one. Then we watched Alabama versus Notre Dame, and Notre Dame pulled the quote-unquote upset. We're going to get into that in a minute as well. But they beat Alabama 78-64. That was a sixth-seeded Crimson Tide team versus Notre Dame. And then in the third game, we saw Wright State give Arizona a good push before losing 87-70. And then we saw in the nightcap a slugfest between TCU.
That's a nice way of putting it.
And Seton Hall. It was an ugly, ugly game. But TCU sort of encompassing what the Big 12 is all about. I was thinking about this when I was driving in here, Riley. I think that was just from a pure basketball takeaway. One of my biggest takeaways from the weekend is that college basketball, and I think that this is where the line is sort of drawn between people that like basketball but find themselves liking much more the NBA and or much more college basketball. College basketball is a significantly more physical game than the NBA is right now because of a variety of the rules, but also just because of the stark jump in athleticism. But I actually think that in terms of the guys that are just like the ferocious beasts, the guys that are just big, strong, tall, tough, run baseline to baseline, there's way more of those guys in college than there is in the NBA. That said, none of those guys have the skill to play in the NBA. That's why they're not going to play in the NBA. It shows you the dichotomy of sport. But that was sort of the main takeaway I had from this weekend was there's a dichotomy within observing this dynamic. On one hand, the physical specimens, the athleticism is so amazing. Some of these big guys are so big, strong, and fast. They have such great endurance, run up and down the court. But also, sort of the lack of skill and the lack of execution is also stark because the physicality and the defense can be so good. And I thought that we saw that on full display that first day, whether it was Texas Tech sort of beating up Montana State, completely boat racing them, or Notre Dame hanging with Alabama, not letting the Crimson Tide's athleticism overwhelm them. TCU, either in their game against Seton Hall or their game against Arizona, sort of making it into a mess to try to lure you into a boxing match. But I thought that sort of the physicality was probably the most surprising part to me. And I think also indicative of how far the Big Sky is away from being able to compete in these games, because that's what I saw was the Bobcats just get pushed around by Texas Tech.
That was a stark difference to see that. And the difference, I think, it really is 3 tiers. I think as a normal college basketball fan out there would go, okay, you got Power 5 and mid-major. Well, I think when you go in person, and we saw this, and you almost have to be sitting courtside to even see the stark difference. But there's 3 divisions to me. There's high major, there's mid-major, and there's low major. And this is, again, no disrespect. I'm not trying to crash on the conference whatsoever. But the Big Sky is a low major. It is by far.
At this exact moment, it is.
And you can see the difference.
5 years ago, it was a real mid-major.
Yeah.
5 years ago, it had an RPI in like 13, 14. It's not that anymore. It's in the 20s. So it's definitively a low major.
It's not. And again, not to pile on, but you ask, and we ran into a bunch of great just college basketball fans. A guy from New Jersey that just came over to fly over and watch basketball and get a neutral standpoint of someone that doesn't watch the Big Sky game in and game out. And watching the 4 games, the takeaway was, well, gosh, Wright State and Montana State should have been switched around in their seed. Montana State looked like a 16 seed. Big Sky schools have, but back to the bigger point, you see the 3 differences in majors to me: high major, mid major, low major, and the biggest difference physicality wise. I thought it was really intriguing, which as we dive into this Arizona and TCU game, I asked you immediately, because you know me, I like asking questions right off the bat. Was that one of the best college basketball games you've ever seen?
Yep.
And I was a little bit intrigued by your response. You said, not really. And to me, like, just the atmosphere and how great it was back and forth. But I love how you see it the next level, because you're like, it wasn't the best basketball as far as just from that pure form. And I think it's interesting. It creates a really good talking point, because I think even me versus you and how we kind of saw the game and felt it, that there's a lot of people driving around that probably would feel the same way, the difference in the 2.
Tournament takeover here on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, presented in part by Dazzler's Car Wash. Make your car shine today at Dazzler's. Located right next door to us here at Missoula Broadcasting Company, 2610 Radio Way. From washing the outside to they have really strong vacuums. I've been loving the vacuums. So the suction on the vacuums, primo. You can get everything out of your car. You can make it sparkling on the inside and the outside. Swing by Dazzler's Car Wash. Treat your car how it deserves to be treated. 2610 Radio Way in Missoula. And I think part of that is not even a preference as much as just the way that maybe you learn how to watch basketball too. I've just always been a big NBA guy. Part of that's just because of, that's what my dad used to watch. The only channel we really got had the Utah Jazz on it. So I was, sort of baptized in the pick and roll, Stockton to Malone. And I think that, and I'm not taking anything away from the college game, there's just such great defensive play in it. But also I think that at the highest level, it's become so much about coaching. And sometimes I feel like the game is overcoached, but that's why these teams look like they do, and there's such X's and O's in the defensive strategies and all that sort of stuff. And so, like Arizona, for example, they're two bigs. The big guy number 35.
Christian Coloco.
Yep, Christian Coloco, who's a pretty, he's a high level guy. He's exactly what I'm talking about. A guy that probably couldn't play in the NBA because of his lack of skill, but he has an NBA body. And then what's my other guy? Benedict
Mathurin.
Benedict Mathurin, who had the highlight reel dunk. Both those guys scored 30 without making any sort of real spectacular one-on-one move or any sort of real offensive execution. They just made a bunch of buckets. And so it's just interesting. It's just a completely and objectively different sport. And seeing it live and in person was interesting to me. I also think, though, that the Big Sky, because of the prevalence of three-point shooting and the lack of true girthy posts, is actually more like the NBA than the Big 12 is, as ironic as that sounds. The style of the play, the players are certainly several notches below. But I think that that's the other, maybe my brother and I were texting about this. Think of it just when it comes to the thing that the Big Sky is missing the most. Think of the best bigs in the league in the last 10 years. Martin Breuning at Montana. Joel Bollenboy at Weber State. Banke Joyce and Jake Wiley at Eastern Washington. You could probably even throw Fabian Krislovic in there just because of his acumen.
Mason Peatling.
Mason Peatling at Eastern Washington for sure.
Bello.
Jabril Bello is probably there when he's at full strength for sure. But what did I just name? I just named a whole bunch of jumping jack stretch. I mean, Banke Joyce is 6'5.5". Jake Wiley's 6'6". But none of these guys, even Martin Breuning, who's 6'9", Joel Bollenboy, who's 6'9", 210. These guys are not what we saw. The most striking moment of the Texas Tech game against Montana State was when Williams, number 11, he walked by Jabril Bello after hitting a three, and he watched those two stand right next to each other, and they were the exact same size. They were both out about 6'8.5", 245, and one of these dudes is playing stretch four, but he's more like the two in Texas Tech's lineup, and Bello is the Big Sky MVP who plays nothing but the five. I thought that there was just a stark difference in body, and I do think that there's a variety of things that are holding the Big Sky back from competing, but I do think that they're maybe not even playing the same sport. Also, they've been playing with a significantly different type of athlete.
No, and I think that that's where you start. It's just the big fellas down low. And I think, again, this can kind of circle back to the low major, mid-major discussion, because the Big Sky Conference, whether it's the transfer portal or how college recruiting has changed, they haven't had a dude like that for a while. And to have multiple guys down low, I feel is almost essential, because when you get to the NCAA tournament, you have to be able to hang. If not, your weakness is going to get exposed. We have seen firsthand. You talk about the game maybe being overcoached at this level. It's over-officiated as well.
No kidding.
And so you're seeing guys get in foul trouble nonstop.
Don't you think that part of that's because the rules aren't applicable to the...
I absolutely
think that
agree.
the freedom of motion rules that they implemented about 4 or 5 years ago, they don't. I'm not even saying that they're too stringent or whatever. They just don't mesh with what the game is. The game is right now a hyper-athletic, low-skill but high-motor, high-intensity game. You need guys that can run around crazy. There's a million Clint Capellas in college basketball right now, right? But if you're going to have that sort of effort be the high priority, that sort of defense be the high priority, the rules aren't applicable. You're only going to ever get 40 foul calls because coaches want you to be up in your shorts defensively like Texas Tech, but you're right, it becomes so over-officiated, just like that Texas Tech Notre Dame game was.
It got to a point where it was just a free throw fest. And guys, too, because I feel, and this is coming from a college basketball guy, the NBA, what I love is very rarely are fouls going to play a part in who is on the floor at a certain time. I feel in these college games that my gosh, the game shrinks so much that if you have one bad 4-minute stretch, especially, and I cater it back now to these underdogs, where you have to play perfect for 40 minutes. St. Peter's, you have to play perfect to beat Kentucky. Montana State, you have to play perfect to even compete against a team like Texas Tech. And then when you get foul trouble and, okay, well, Bello or somebody else has 2 fouls, they have to sit the remainder of the first half, takes all the game planning completely out, which again is another reason why the underdog is having such an uphill climb. Where yes, St. Peter's is a great story, which we'll talk about, but you look at the Sweet 16. Yeah, you might see seeds 11, seeds 10 that are in it. It's Power 5 leagues.
For sure, ACC teams.
It's the only, besides St. Peter's, everybody's a Power 6 if you include the Big East left.
I mean, the double-digit seeds are Michigan, Miami,
Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State. Yes, exactly. We're not talking about little brothers. We're talking about top 40 athletic departments in terms of budget.
And we felt that too. Notre Dame, Alabama. I think coming in, we're like, oh, this would be an upset if Notre Dame won. We watched 5 minutes of that game. We both looked at each other. You were right in your game. For the Montana State game, we go, this wouldn't be an upset. This would not be an upset.
They got Mike Bray right there.
Yeah, it's Notre Dame, Alabama. This would not be an upset. They just look different coming off the bus.
Tournament takeover here on Nuanez Now ESPN Radio is presented in part by Palmer's Drug. You go out of your way to shop local when it comes to pretty much anything, so do it when it comes to shopping with your pharmacy. When you think local pharmacy at Palmer's Drug, located on Southwest Higgins here in the Garden City. Last question, or last couple questions before because we're going to get into what the Big Sky is missing a little later after we talk about the Montana State women too, because I do think there's some similar dynamics in terms of at least the finances and the scheduling of all this that are stark realities that I think that maybe people don't quite understand. But our site in San Diego, we saw now Texas Tech and Arizona moving on. Both of these teams, you obviously have a proximity bias, having seen them in person, seen the bodies that they have, seen the execution that they have, seen them put together a couple impressive wins each. But where are we at with these two teams? And seeing them in person or not, do you feel like these two teams have an opportunity to make a real run?
I do. And it's funny because you look at the point spreads for what's coming out the next game. Both of them are a 1-point favorite, which would be surprising maybe to some with Arizona. I think that every championship team has a game where they look and go, oof, might have gotten away with that. And Arizona already had that game. I feel that they have all the makings. They've got the inside-out shooting. Kirk Carissa just got back into the fold. I feel Arizona.
Man, his ankle, you could see the black and swelling above his high. He was wearing mid-calf socks. That's a nasty injury.
And if you go look it on Twitter if you have the stomach to do it. Don't do it before you eat. But Kirk Carissa's ankle is just jacked up. So he's trying to play through it. I feel Arizona has all the makings. They have a tough matchup with Houston, but that bracket's manageable. Texas Tech, they are so intriguing because now they get thrown right into the spotlight. And yes, I am bringing the X factor. I'm bringing the Coach K factor into this culture because I feel on paper they are a better team than Duke. And there is a reason they're a 1-point favorite on Thursday night. But the Coach K factor, whether it be good or bad, is going to come into play on Thursday. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a whistle down the stretch style of play. I really hope those two teams can duke it out because that'd be a great game. But Coulter, Texas Tech, we saw their style.
For sure.
If the officials want to take over a game with Texas Tech, they could take them right out of it right away. I hope it doesn't happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did.
Tournament takeover here on Nuanez Now ESPN Radio is presented in part by Crawford's Automotive. From oil changes to brakes, tune-ups to transmissions, Crawford's will get you back on the road. Call 406-542-7705 today. Okay, let's pull up your bracket there, Mr. Corcoran. No. Riley Corcoran, the voice of the Grizz, and a college basketball expert here, even though he talked me into about 7 bad bets this weekend.
So bad.
I can't blame anybody for anything. You make your own decisions. I went out on my own and rode my Iowa State thoughts. That was good. Happy about that one. But here's where, so if you're already entered in our bracket challenge, great. If you're not, we're going to relaunch something tomorrow. So we'll give you some details. There's usually the sort of the reseed where you can pick from the Sweet 16 on.
Ooh, I'm down for that. I need a fresh start.
Maybe we'll have a little side prizes for you. But our bracket challenge is presented in part by Paradise Falls of Missoula. We have almost $3,000 in prizes total for this. So you don't just have to beat us, you just have to beat each other. The first, second, and third placers in the bracket challenge will win substantial prizes. But here's where we're at for the Sweet 16. Gonzaga versus Arkansas. I had both of those. How'd you do on those two?
Gonzaga got them both.
Yep.
Had them both.
And then Texas Tech versus Duke. I had both of those.
I had both of those as well.
Okay, the seeds hold in the West, and I don't know. It's going to be an interesting deal. I mean, I think Gonzaga will get past Arkansas, even though Arkansas is good. I think they'll test them a little bit. But I think that next game is a coin flip for sure.
And it's a rematch. Gonzaga has played both Duke and Texas Tech. They lost to Duke. They beat Texas Tech. So that just creates another factor, too, when you've seen a team before. So that'll be big. And I think everyone is already penciling in Gonzaga, Duke, but Texas Tech has a chance there. That'll be a really intriguing matchup.
UCLA versus North Carolina and Purdue versus St. Peter's in the East. UCLA, North Carolina is probably one that Vegas is going to love because you got huge fan bases on both sides piling in and influencing the spread. So that'll be interesting to see. I've been high on UCLA mostly because we just watched them so many times last year in the tournament, and they have such a huge part of that core back. I also think that Mick Cronin is a great tournament-style coach. So I had UCLA in the Sweet 16. I also have them in the Final Four, or excuse me, in the Elite Eight. I had them beating Baylor, which was one of the upsets that busted everybody's bracket. By the way, that was probably the best game we watched and didn't attend was the Baylor North Carolina game. They had the sort of the silver screen, so to speak,
the standalone
on Saturday mid-morning. So we went and had some brunch and found a great place called Bootleggers downtown San Diego, and had a great time taking in the games there. But that was a great game. But what do you think of this North Carolina UCLA match?
I think it's classic as far as getting some blue bloods in it, where everybody expected UCLA and Kentucky. Could you imagine if Kentucky would have beaten St. Peter's and you have Kentucky, Purdue, UCLA, North Carolina? Right. All of a sudden, that goes to the headliner for sure. I had UCLA, didn't have North Carolina. They have come on strong. I agree. After watching them play, the common theme was they are not an 8 seed with the way they're playing right now, and that certainly proved that to beat a Baylor team, knock out the defending national champs. I've been high on Purdue all season long, and I had them to this point, and it was really tough for me. I had Kentucky in the Final Four, so I got busted. Buddy. I got busted right away on that. But Purdue does not surprise me because they had been in the top 5. If you look at them on paper, They have all the makings. They've got a 7'4" big guy in Edey. They've got Jalen Ivey, a top 5 pick. It's a point guard. They've got the 3-point shooting outside. They've got the top reserve in the league. It's a 6'11" monster off of the bench. So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that Purdue is here. And now looking at their draw, I would actually be surprised if Purdue does not make the Final Four. It could be a really good matchup, Coulter. And yes, it'd be great if St. Peter's won. But let's just call it what it is. That's not happening. So Purdue against the winner of North Carolina and UCLA, I think it's going to be a great matchup, but maybe the best matchup in the Elite Eight.
That is going to be fascinating to see how that side of the bracket plays out because you've been high on Purdue all along.
All year.
I think that was one of the most defining parts of the way that this bracket transpired is you had multiple teams that were lined up for 1s or 2s that lost early in their conference tournament and then fell one. Like if Duke would have played in the ACC final, they probably would have been a 1 seed, right? Yeah. Or they probably would have been in a little bit more of a mix for the 1 seed.
If
right?
Purdue wins, they might be a 2 seed.
Right. If they win the Big Ten, they might be a 2 or even a 1, right? I mean, there was a couple teams that were in the mix there on that line that lost early in their tournaments, and then other teams that sort of stole the higher seed, like Tennessee playing through the SEC, or I'm trying to think of another example. Regardless, Iowa was another example that probably played its way up in the conference tournaments before then subsequently not performing in the tournament. In the South, it's Arizona, top seed, versus Houston. Great video post-game of Kelvin Sampson, all late 60s of him, ripping his shirt off and just dancing like it's 1997.
Still got a little butte in him, huh?
That's exactly right. Mile high, mile deep, baby. Former Montana Tech coach. So Arizona versus Houston, and the winner will play Michigan versus Villanova. And then in the Midwest, it's Kansas versus Providence and Iowa State versus Miami. So I had Arizona here as well as Houston. I did not have Michigan. I did not have Villanova. Kansas I had. Providence I did not. I had Iowa there. I had Iowa State in the Sweet 16, so that's a good one for me that a lot of people didn't have. But then I didn't have Miami. Instead, I had Auburn, and I had Auburn in one of my brackets winning the whole thing, and the other one losing to Gonzaga in the championship. So my national champ and/or national runner-up out in my 2 brackets.
Ooh, see, that's where I can make some hay a little bit because I still have Gonzaga, Arizona. But this right side of the bracket,
after watching them live for sure.
But on the right side of the bracket right now, there's 8 teams remaining. I have 2 of them. I picked Arizona. I had Illinois. I was high on Tennessee. I had Loyola Chicago beating Villanova. Yeah, that crashed early. Had Iowa beating Providence. And heck no, I didn't have Iowa State and Auburn. Are you kidding me right now? Like who? Or Iowa State and Miami. Who had that matchup in the Sweet 16? Kansas, my goodness. Did the path just open up for them or
for sure.
what? I mean, but with
they'll
that
still find a way to lose.
They will.
It's like almost a guarantee that Kansas is in the Sweet 16. It's almost a guarantee that they're out before the Final Four. It's nothing to sneeze at. They're in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight every year, but they always lose.
If they blow it this year, that's going to create pandemonium because you're going to have either Providence, Miami, or Iowa State in the Final Four.
Oh, buddy.
I would say Kansas has the easiest path to the Final Four remaining, but yeah, I'm not taking any credit for this side other than I have Arizona in the championship game, and I've got Kansas in the Elite Eight. That's it. That's brutal.
Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. Our brackets are busted, too. Stay tuned for Nuanez Now tomorrow. Rajim Seabrook going to come roll with us. Later on this week, Thursday and Friday, we'll be doing Nuanez Now from Brett's RV and Marine. So taking the show on the road again, except for this time, it's only down the street there on Grant Creek Road. So you can come see us, say what's up, and maybe catch a little Nuanez Now. But Rajim will be here tomorrow, and we'll give you some updates on how maybe you can do a redo. We'll do a Nuanez Now ESPN Montana Bracket Challenge Redux. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. The Montana Basketball Hour, proudly presented by The Advocates. The Advocates can help you if you've been injured in an auto accident, a pedestrian or cycling accident. If you've been injured in any sort of accident that wasn't your fault, you deserve an advocate. Call to discuss your case with an experienced personal injury attorney. No out-of-pocket expenses. Call 406-640-4444 today. And always remember, you need an advocate. Montana State's men got blitzed. They still figured out a way to score 62 points, even though they lost by 35 to Texas Tech. Montana State's women, they didn't score for the first 12 minutes of the game. They lost by 41. Just how far is the gap between the Big Sky and the rest of the Division I on the NCAA women's tournament side? We will discuss, and we'll also hear from a couple players from Montana State and Stanford. Keep it right here. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio.
Open your new Stockman Bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then, add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
Have you ever worried if you're up to snuff in the bedroom? Are you looking to skip the waiting lines and the admission at the pharmacy? Do you want effective male enhancement delivered right to your door? Palmer's Drug of Missoula has you covered. All you need is a prescription from a doctor and a home address for Palmer's Drug to ship to. If you want to improve your love life and get right in the bedroom, all while keeping it discreet, look into home delivery through Palmer's Drug. Palmer's Drug, your trusted local pharmacy in Missoula.
It's time to gear up for spring sports and adventure at Bob Ward's. Save now on new gear for soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, and more. Hit the links with new golf apparel, clubs, bags, and more. Everything you need for any spring sports is in stock now, with more arriving daily at Bob Ward's. Grab the latest styles from top brands in the athletic department. Get technology and style in the newest footwear from Brooks, Hoka, Under Armour, and all your favorite brands. Even our camping and water sports department are stocked with new gear. Gear up at Bob Ward's. Sports and outdoors, Montana style.
Katie O'Keefe's Bar and Casino is one of the best places to watch sports in all of the Garden City. Located at 2100 Stevens in the Stevens Center, this friendly neighborhood hideaway is a fantastic place to watch the NCAA tournaments with your friends and family. And Katie's is also a proud sponsor of the Nuanez Now Bracket Challenge, offering more than $2,500 in prizes for whomever can fill out that perfect bracket. All March long, come watch the March Madness at Katie O'Keefe's, where the drinks are cold and the people are friendly.
The world of real estate is always evolving. That's more true now than ever. If you are a longtime Missoulian that is looking to upgrade or downsize, it might be the best time yet to sell. If you're in the position to buy something new, today might be the best time to buy. And no matter what questions you have when it comes to residential or commercial real estate, Mike Nugent and the professionals at Berkshire Hathaway in Missoula have your answers. To find out what Mike can do for you, give him a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
The
Silver Slipper is the place to watch all the basketball madness this month. Monday through Friday happy hour from 5 to 7 p.m. Half off drinks, $1 off beer, and $1 off wine. There will be daily drink and food specials, plus the Silver Slipper Bracket Challenge with prizes for first through third place and a daily drawing for a gift card. Must be present to win. The Silver Slipper has over 55 TVs, so you won't miss a game. Head on down to the Silver Slipper, across from Walmart on Highway 93 in Missoula. The Silver Slipper is the place to watch all the basketball madness this month.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Each of the Big Sky Conference's representatives in the Big Dance ran into buzzsaws, while a few more Big Sky teams remain alive in less prominent national tournaments. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. In the first round of the NCAA tournament, Montana State represented the Big Sky in men's and women's hoops. In the first game of Friday's session from San Diego, California, third-seeded Texas Tech caught fire and never let up, rolling 14th-seeded Montana State 97-62 in one of the largest margins of victory of any of the 32 first-round games. The Red Raiders raced to leads of 18-4 and 30-7, eventually leading by 25 at halftime and by as many as 37 in the second half. Texas Tech outlasted Notre Dame 59-53 to advance to the Sweet 16, while they'll play Duke. MSU's season finishes with a 27-8 mark. Later Friday from Stanford, California, the MSU women faced an even taller task. The 16th-seeded Bobcats took on number 1-seeded and defending national champion Stanford on their home court. MSU trailed 20-0 at the end of the first quarter and 23-0 before getting a bucket. The final margin ended at 78-37 in favor of the Cardinal. MSU's season finishes with a 22-13 record, while Stanford destroyed Kansas 91-65 to move into the Sweet 16. Northern Colorado, the Big Sky Tournament champion runner-up, has defeated Florida Atlantic and UNC Asheville to reach the Final Four of the college basketball invite, and Southern Utah plays UTEP tonight in the College Basketball Classic.
This 102.9 ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
When I was in college, I somehow found myself living with a bunch of Cali boys who taught me all about tank tops and Frisbee and Land Cruisers and electronic music. And it was so fun and so funny being back in San Diego and just hearing all the same songs that all those losers used to listen to all the time.
I mean, there were a couple tank tops you were jealous you didn't have on when we were
It's so funny. I've ever been to some Montana boy living with these Cali boys, and they're always wanting to go to the beach and the river, which is cool. I'm down. I'll always go to the river for sure. But it was just so funny. They always wanted to cruise with the tank tops and the Frisbees, and we'd always be listening to Cascade like we are right now. So it was so funny, though, because when we first rolled into Bootleggers on our first morning where we weren't going to games in San Diego, this was the song that was playing, and I was like, man, this is the song we used to listen to when we would clean our houses after parties. So it all comes full circle.
That's awesome.
Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. It's our tournament takeover. We're back from the NCAA tournament, and that means our postseason coverage, at least in live person, is finished, but appreciate all of our awesome clients for helping us. We're coming to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. You can march into savings with Northwest Motorsport. Visit NWMS Rocks all month long to check out all the great specials, including low APRs throughout the month of March. Tournament Takeover, presented in part by Vance Thompson Vision. Vance Thompson Vision, they have all sorts of advanced technology to provide you with the best possible outcome for your eyes. They specialize in LASIK surgery, but they also have all sorts of other expert advice that they might be able to give you. Maybe you aren't a candidate for LASIK. They can get you seeing all the games nice and sharp. Visit VanceThompsonVision.com today for more information. Riley, we were on hand to watch Montana State's men get absolutely blitzed. They were down 18-4 and 30-7 before the second media timeout. We were then watching TCU Seton Hall slug it out on Friday night in the fourth game at our session in San Diego. And we were monitoring the Montana State women's game. Well, it was 20-0 at the end of the first quarter and 23-0 before the Bobcats got on the board. The turning point actually was probably when Francesca Balibi, I think I'm saying that
very
correctly,
nice.
had a steal into a fast break dunk. That's right, a dunk. And that was actually a moment where I think Montana State was like, oh my gosh, well, that's never happened before. So maybe we can settle down now because this is a totally different level. Then the Bobcats actually went on a 7-0 run, but they were still down by 30-plus at halftime, and they lose 78-37.
I think that this is a microcosm of a bigger picture, though, Coulter, because both the Montana State men and the women,
for sure,
they were on their heels, and kind of by the time they got adjusted to the game, they were okay. But the game was by far over at that point, and you could see the parallels where, okay, the athleticism is overwhelming, that, okay, we are an underdog is overwhelming, and it all kind of comes to a head where you're thinking so many thoughts where you worked your whole life to get to this point. Well, if you're not planning on executing, you're going to find out what happens. We're going to get into this. I mean, you could not have asked for a more difficult draw for Trisha Binford and Montana.
Literally.
I mean,
defending national champs on their home court, #1 seed. Hardest draw you're going to get.
With a 20-game home winning streak. And I was reading columns today after the Sweet 16 got announced or finalized for the women's side of things. Stanford, if they re-bracketed, is the team to win it. So it's going to be...
I mean, in the second round, they drilled Kansas 91-65. So they're not just destroying teams from the Big Sky. They destroyed a team from the Big 12, too.
They did. And back to the Montana State angle, I absolutely think they settled in a little bit more of, hey, okay, we know that we just need to play loose a little bit, try and get some shots up. The threes did go down later for them, but my goodness, down 23-0, you know the mindset has to change on the fly. I can't imagine just the experience for 40 minutes for all of those gals that got to play on Friday night against Stanford.
Tournament takeover as part of the Montana Basketball Hour presented by J&V Restaurant Supply. J&V is your home for everything kitchen. Whether you're a Bear or a Bobcat, an Eagle or a Scotty, you can score big with J&V. They have 3 locations throughout Montana, Bozeman, Billings, and Great Falls. And if you can't make it in, they have a great website, jvrestaurant.com. J&V, your restaurant specialists. After the game, Lexi Hull and Francesca Belibi were asked about that momentum shifting, or was it, but more just unique and interesting moment. First time I've ever seen a Big Sky team get dunked on. Here's what Stanford's players had to say.
Lexi, have you heard the freshmen razzing Fran, like, okay, we came here to see you dunk. Would you? How's that been? I mean, is it once a week, once a day?
It's all the opportunities where she's on a lane and it's open. We're like, why haven't you done? It's not just the freshmen, it's everyone. And we see it in warm-ups, but we want to see it every game. I mean, why doesn't she do that every game? Yeah, but no, it's kind of just a running joke for everyone.
Hey ladies, it's Lindsay Schnell from USA Today. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So Fran, I know that in the past you've talked about when you have wanted to dunk maybe sometimes and you just didn't feel like the timing was right, like we're not far enough ahead or whatever. You looked really determined from the second that you blocked her shot. Are you telling the truth when you say you didn't decide to dunk until you got past the 3-point line? Because you looked pretty bound and determined way before half court.
Well, I was just, I don't know. When it's happening, I'm not usually like, oh my God, I'm gonna dunk right now, except for one. On this one, I think there are like some outside factors in regards to like how open I am, the time and score situation. But yeah, this one felt good, and I just was watching Lexi get a bunch of steals and goes, so I figured I'd channel her, so I went up for it.
So you go, some fun sound bites from Stanford players following their team's 78-37 win over Montana State in the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Bobcats, they finished their season with a 22-13 mark. Big Sky Conference tournament champions. And they return a lot coming in next year, but the gap remains wide. Here's Trisha Binford, Montana State's 17th-year head coach, here on Nuanez Now.
Well, want to say how proud we are of our team and what we got through this season, how we came together at the end of the year, and just the opportunity to get to experience this and win the conference tournament, represent the Big Sky. I knew we were going to give them a lot of effort, a lot of heart, and we certainly brought all those things. So just really proud of this team and what they've accomplished this year. And at the same time, we're rooting for Stanford. I thought right from the get-go, I think their size and their length really dictated the start of that game, and then we got settled in once we got to that second quarter, started showing a little bit more of the Bobcats.
Tricia Binford, Montana State 17th year head coach here on Nuanez Now. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, joining me in studio here on ESPN Radio. It's our Montana Basketball Hour presented by the Advocates. There's no fee until the Advocates recover a settlement for you, so you have nothing to lose. Call the Advocates today, 406-640-4444. And remember, you deserve an advocate. And Riley, here's the thing. We can dissect this from a talent standpoint, style of play standpoint, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this comes down to money. And if you're making $45+ million as an athletic department because you get to play on the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the SEC network or the Big 12 network, then the gap is going to continue to widen between the Power Fives and everybody else. You already see that with how many Power Fives are into the Sweet 16 in both the men's and women's tournaments. And I actually think for as wide as the gap was very apparently between Montana State's men and Texas Tech, the gap is significantly wider in women's basketball. Part of that comes from longevity and stability of the coaches that exist in women's college basketball, whether it's Muffet McGraw at Notre Dame or Gino Auriemma at UConn or Tara Vanderveer at Stanford or Kim Mulkey at LSU. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different coaches that are institutions at the place that they coach at. And so success breeds success, but Montana State, or anybody in the Big Sky for that matter in women's basketball, the gap is much wider even because of the blue bloods that exist, but also because of the the secondary effects that the trickle down of all the money from football and men's basketball has on these athletic departments.
It really is so wide right now, and it's really hard to compare to Stanford because we're trying to prove a bigger point where it wouldn't matter if it was, let's just say Arizona. They were a team that was like a 4 seed. There's just such a different level right now, and I love Tricia Binford. So do you. We're great fans of her, but even right there in the press conference, it just goes to tell you just the difference in mindset. Well, I'm glad we got to all experience this, and the mindset coming in is not. A Big Sky team doesn't feel they even have a chance coming into one of those things. And in women's basketball, it's going to be really intriguing to see, Coulter. You rarely see these underdogs make a run. That being said, we talked in the airport and on our trip about someone that is in the Sweet 16. And now in the last couple years, both South Dakota and South Dakota State women have made the Sweet 16. I think that is the model, the formula for how maybe Montana State, because I feel despite everything kind of against them, Montana and Montana State have the closest recipe to try and follow a South Dakota and a South Dakota State. But, Coulter, the gap is so wide right now. I think you do a deep dive. How in the heck did South Dakota go down to Baylor and beat Baylor? That's the formula. That's the dream. And we'll see if a Big Sky school can get there. But it is very evident. And I think even more so when we talk personnel on the women's side of things, the lack of size down low is the biggest factor because the game can be taken over before it's even tipped off. And I felt that was the case even with Montana State. They had a great team a couple years ago. Well, Peyton Ferris is playing the 5
for sure.
How are you gonna compete against a Washington team that has more size? That to me is even more on display. I feel in the women's game than the men's game is just the abundance of size down low.
I think that we're going to continue to see this. I mean, most of the at-large bid. 9 teams from the Big Ten made it to the tournament this year on the men's side. We're going to continue to see the high majors gobble up almost all the at-large bids. We're going to continue to see mid-major champions get misseeded and poorly represented. The Mountain West went 0-4 in the postseason, but part of that was because of the draws that they got. San Diego State shouldn't have blown a lead to Creighton. They should have figured out a way to win that game. But I thought that Boise State got a raw draw. I thought Wyoming got a raw draw.
Colorado State got a tough draw.
Colorado State got a tough draw. So, I don't know, man. I think we're going to continue to see the stratification. I hope it doesn't rob us of some of the things that we love the most about college sports, like the underdogs, like the David versus Goliath. So, we'll see.
I think in a way, and this is going to sound a little bit backwards, I think for basketball fans, going back to the men's side, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, to have success, you would have wanted Murray State to honestly beat St. Peter's because I think Murray State could at least give Purdue a chance to where you're walking into this thing. At least this week, that's not going to be the case. I want to throw one more thing before we turn the page back at you, someone who follows the league better than anybody. With what's going on, you talked about Montana State returning a lot and the best player in the league in Darian White.
For sure.
Well, with what's going on in Pocatello right now, entering the transfer portal, which I think we touched on it Friday, but not in full length, Where does Montana State rank? The Lady Grizz right now as well. And what is going on down in Pocatello? I think those are interesting storylines as we kind of fade out of the Big Sky Conference women's season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting league race next year for sure because there was so many new faces on the scene. I do think that Izzy Natabo down at Sacramento State, her continued progression is going to have a huge influence on what we think of the landscape of the Big Sky Conference. I think that Montana State has a star, and they have a budding sort of second-tier player in Cola Badbear.
And a style, a distinct style.
They have a style, but I do think that they are because Darian White is so transcendently good and because she plays so well in her hometown of Boise, Montana State's going to be the favorite to win that tournament until Darian White's not playing anymore. That's a completely different conversation, though, too. If Montana State wins the tournament again next year, what's their draw going to be like? I do think that they're obviously not far away. In fact, that they have everything they need to win in Boise. They are a long ways away from being able to compete in the national tournament.
Well, there's two things that are coming into play now that we're seeing with why the Big Sky Conference continues to get seeded lower. I guess three, really. Number one, they haven't proved that they can compete, let alone deserve a seed higher than what they normally get they get on the big stage. But also, non-conference scheduling is becoming a big factor here. Do you have marquee wins, which we touched on Friday?
Yep.
But also, the abundance of losses catches up, too. And that's what happened to Montana State, where, yes, in a conference race, it's okay to go 15-5 and try and win the league, which is totally fine. But when you're losing to teams that have RPIs or net ratings of in the bottom 50 teams in the country, that's going to kill you on the national stage when you're trying to fight for maybe a 13 seed where you have a chance compared to a 15 seed where you really don't.
That's why I'm so unfortunate that the team from the Big Sky in the last handful of years that had the best chance to go make noise in the national tournament was the Montana State women in 2020. That team went 19-1 in league. They won, I think, 27 or maybe 28 games overall.
Fringe 11-12 seed.
Maybe even higher because that team beat a ranked Minnesota team that year. That team beat they beat South Dakota State that year. They had played. Who else did they play? They played 4 high majors, and I believe they went 3-1 in those games. And so they had the wins. The other good draws we've seen are Northern Colorado a couple years ago, got a 10 seed. They won at DePaul that year. The Idaho State last year, they had a couple big wins as well that were 9 conference wins. You just got to beat one.
You do, and you have to have that respect all year long where Montana State men, they had it. But, Coulter, they were so close on their 4 non-conference losses. I mean, overtime loss at Colorado, went down to the pit and played New Mexico well. Even if you get one of those, it just turns the narrative to, okay, this Team X is a team to watch. Idaho State women got some big-time wins 2 years ago, so they were on everybody's radar. They're a floating 12-13 seed all year long. It takes the full body of work here for these Big Sky teams, and that's why scheduling, everything's so important if you want to get more respect on the national level.
Well, it's the same thing like with the Grizz teams, the last 2 Grizz teams on the men's side that went to the NCAA tournament. Those teams both won 26 games, but they both had 16-4 conference records. I guess one had 16-2 because it wasn't a 20-game league schedule yet. But what I'm getting at is those teams were missing that marquee non-conference win, too. They had Stanford on the ropes. They couldn't get it. They played really well at Washington. Couldn't get it. You know, they had a whole bunch of Power 5 opponents where they were at least sort of competitive, and they couldn't get it done. And even just one. I mean, the quote-unquote good draws the Big Sky teams have gotten over the last 15 years, that's only happened 3 times. It's because those teams won good out-of-conference games.
This is a good summer project when we're looking for things to, think about and come up with segments for storylines for the next year is, yes, those teams that have gotten good draws, go look at their non-conference scheduling because, again, it's the million-dollar question right now, and we'll see how the Big Sky kind of adjusts. They're trying to alter their conference tournament to make sure they get the best team represented. I think it's just going to be a trickle-down and a constant thing that you have to monitor to see if the Big Sky can have some success.
Nuanez now ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. The Montana Basketball Hour presented by the Advocates continues. How about some random news briefs from around the Big Sky Conference? We shall discuss to take you into hour number 2. Keep it right here. Nuanez now ESPN Radio. Part of the glory of building a business comes from leaving a legacy to ensure your business continues thriving into the future. Have you asked yourself lately, what is your plan? Forming a personalized business succession plan is essential to know the passion you put into your business will carry on. Nick Tabor at Westpac Wealth is here to help you navigate all your business succession and retirement planning needs. Give Nick a call at 728-6699 and keep the spirit of possibility vibrant while making your future more tax efficient with a personalized business succession and retirement plan for you.
Back by popular demand, Zootown Sports Cards presents the Missoula Sports Card and Collectibles Show. Check out exceptionally rare and coveted cards and goods from more than 40 vendors from around the state and region. It's all going down at the Doubletree Hotel Saturday, April 2nd, 10 till 5. Admission for attendees is free. JSA authentication will be on site, so come check out the hottest in the memorabilia industry at the Missoula Sports Card and Collectibles Show at the Doubletree, April 2nd. Presented by Zootown Sports Cards of Missoula.
Here at Florence Coffee Co., we are proud to serve the finest flavors under the big sky, like our smooth and delectable cold brewed toddy coffee. Florence Coffee's fresh brewed toddy coffee is known for its low acidity and smooth flavor. Served over ice, add your favorite flavor or an iced coffee like no other. Try one today at any of our Floco locations around Western Montana and visit us at florencecoffeeco.com.
Florence Coffee Company.
Whether you're in the restaurant business or you just want to host any big event, J&V Restaurant Supply can make sure you have everything you need. J&V Restaurant Supply is your home for everything kitchen. Whether you're a bear or a bobcat, an eagle or a Scotty, J&V Restaurant has everything you might need. They have locations in Bozeman, Billings, and Great Falls. If you can't make it in, J&V also has a great website, jvrestaurant.com. Get everything you need for your next event at J&V, your restaurant specialists. Jake Dubeck knows people, and because of his gift of getting to know anyone he crosses paths with, Jake Dubeck understands what makes Montana so great. The Montanans. Whether you're looking to buy or sell real estate in the Helena area, Jake Dubeck should be your first call. Any questions you might have, from the accelerating Montana real estate market to knowledge of the neighborhoods in and around the capital city, if you're in the Helena area, call Jake Dubeck at 406-465-5506. Jake, proud supporter of the Montana State Minute with Danny Sprinkle.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
What's up, Montana? Welcome back. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Colter Nuanez, Riley Corcoran coming to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. The Montana Basketball Hour rolls on, presented by the Advocates. The Advocates can help you if you've been injured in any sort of an accident. Call today to discuss your case with an experienced personal injury attorney with no out-of-pocket expense. Call 406-640-4444 today. A couple things outside of the basketball world, I guess a couple inside the basketball world, but outside of the state of Montana, but still within the Big Sky Conference to go over, as well as a piece of football news to parlay us then into our second hour, where myself and Andrew Houghton will discuss spring football for both the Grizzlies and the Bobcats. First, Zach Claus, who was the interim coach at Idaho, is now remaining the coach at Idaho. He was the interim and then signed, a one-year deal or a two-year deal. But regardless, he got re-upped. He'll be back next season. This was sort of surprising. Only 14 Division I wins in the last 3 seasons for Idaho under Zach Claus.
Really surprising. And I think that he came down to the late season stretch, and it seemed like his fate had maybe been sealed. And you have to take in the backstory into account here. They have a lot of momentum with that brand new arena. They kind of feel like, hey, the time is now for us to try and turn this thing around. To Zach Claus's defense, he hasn't really had a full, true year to develop and recruit with the COVID year and everything that has happened. But Coulter, you kind of look at what they did. They got swept by Idaho State. And I remember this.
They lost to Idaho State when Idaho State didn't have a coach.
Exactly.
Ryan Looney was out with COVID, and Idaho State ran him out of the gym.
They did. And for their first win after Idaho State was on a 10-game losing streak, whatever it might be, then they go to Moscow and win. The Grizz came in to Moscow the next game, and there was sense in that arena of, yeah, this is probably going to be it. Well, what's Idaho do? They run off wins over Montana, Weber State, and Eastern, and it created a tough dynamic. That ultimately got him an extra year, but goodness, with everybody that's in the transfer portal, Coulter, that's going to be really interesting to see how Idaho, obviously, it's a show-me year. Like, they obviously have to make a huge jump. I would say going 500 in the league is probably at least a starting point for Zach Claus to maybe be retained after this.
Sad that that's been the bar that it's been lowered to. Idaho should be, could be, and I mean, they should and could be one of the better programs in the Big Sky Conference. They were one of the better programs in the Big Sky Conference when they returned to the league back in 2014, all the way through when Don Verlin was dismissed 3 seasons ago. Ryan Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, in studio with me, Coulter Nuanez, wrapping up the Montana basketball hour. Northern Colorado and Southern Utah, the last 2 Big Sky teams remaining. The Idaho State women went to the WNIT with an auto bid as part of their regular season conference championship. After then, they lost in the quarterfinals of the Big Sky tournament. Idaho State lost in overtime in the NIT, is that right?
To Wyoming.
Okay, so Idaho State, the last women's team out other than Montana State. And then on the men's side, Northern Colorado, Southern Utah. So Northern Colorado's in the CBI, the Final Four of the CBI. Which UNC are they playing? Asheville, Wilmington. They already played one.
They're up to they played Asheville yesterday. They got Wilmington today. So who ironically was in Missoula for the Thanksgiving tournament.
So UNC of Northern Colorado plays UNC of Asheville today, or Wilmington. I can't remember. But that's the Final Four in that tournament, the CBI. And then Southern Utah plays tomorrow night. Who do they play?
They play tonight against
tonight. Okay.
UTEP.
Today's Tuesday.
Yep.
I keep thinking it's Monday.
And if they win, they're one of 5 teams remaining in the college basketball class. Now, be honest. If it wasn't for me being around you the last 5 days and letting you know they were playing, would you know these 2 teams are still going?
Just because of Twitter and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Would you rather win a bunch of games and go to the NCAA tournament, lose by 35, or stack some wins against some low major opponents?
I think it kind of depends on where you're at as a program. If you've got the senior route, which is interesting because that's what Northern Colorado has, I wouldn't play in a tournament like this, but you just go for broke kind of NCAA tournament. You've seen it with Weber State when they don't have kind of the dudes. And I actually thought in a twisted way, if you have a younger roster or a younger core, that's when you want the experience of a tournament like this, maybe a la Montana. But it's interesting. I'm go back to you, the exposure that they're getting. Now Northern Colorado's won 3 games, and give them credit. Yep. They are now in the semifinals, which are on ESPN2 tonight. There are 5 college basketball games in the country going on, and they are one on ESPN2. How much of a benefit is that? And not knocking anyone down, but outside of a Big Sky Conference school that doesn't have Montana or Montana State next to it, how big is the exposure for one of the other 9 schools in the league?
I have such a hard time registering if that stuff even sticks in people's minds. You know, like it's great exposure while it's happening, but you forget it. It's hard enough to even remember who played in the Super Bowl last year, unless you catalog it in your brain and make yourself remember. I don't know. I mean, for all of the Maryland, Baltimore counties, we don't ever talk about Florida Gulf Coast anymore. You know, that was a one and done thing. People forget Oral Roberts was one of the Cinderellas of last year's tournament. What are they doing right now? Nobody's talked about them since they were out. So I just really don't know how much that imprint really matters. But I guess if you have some channel surfer that lands on it and they Google Northern UNC and find out that's in Northern Colorado, maybe it is beneficial to you. I just think if it's good for the health of your program and you're going to continue to develop as a team, as well as then add to sort of the tradition is the wrong word because I think there's much tradition that comes from the CBI. But checking little boxes does help you get in the door of recruits. 21 season, okay, now Northern Colorado's got it. Playing the postseason X number of years in a row. Boom, now Northern Colorado's got it. Let's say they win this tournament. They'll be the only Big Sky team ever to win a college basketball postseason tournament, and they'll have done it twice. Sure, you could say it's the CBI. Nobody else has done it. So it is something you could at least use in recruiting a little bit.
You nailed the 2 points that I was about to make for the benefit of it. Recruiting, because right now there are only a couple teams still playing. Okay, to have that name and face get out to recruits, that is beneficial. And also, yeah, you talked about it. There's actually been 2 Big Sky schools that have had success. Northern Arizona made a run to the CIT championship game before eventually losing. That was by far the best year under Jack Murphy.
For sure.
And then Northern Colorado, now they're bidding for their second CBI title. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Obviously, it's worked for Northern Colorado. They have embraced the transfer portal. They have had a dude the last couple of years. We talk about what was missing for Montana and other teams. Northern Colorado has not missed on having a guy. They've had it for, 6, 7 straight years now.
Montana Basketball Hour presented by the Advocates. If your life was turned upside down because of an accident that wasn't your fault, the Advocates can help you. There's no fee until the Advocates recover a settlement for you, so you have nothing to lose. Call 406-640-4444 to talk to your advocate today. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, joining me, Colter Nuanez, as we put a bow on this tournament takeover. So let's transition into football, because that's what we're talking about in hour number 2. We're up against it, but quickly, Riley, a new safeties coach at the University of Montana, Shan Schillinger, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. He's out to Mississippi State. Congratulations to Shan. Great friend of the show, great friend of mine. Heading to the SEC to join Mike Leach's staff in Starkville. Roger Cooper, the 2004 Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year at where? Montana State. He is now a Grizz. A job's a job. I think working for Bobby Houck's probably a great job. I think working at the University of Montana is a great job. The first time I saw Roger Cooper in the Grizz gear is something else. It really is. This would be like, like a Jordan Tripp being a Bobcat coach. It's amazing. But Roger Cooper, a guy who's been the Big Sky as a coach for 10 years.
Well, if I would have told you 2 years ago, or when Bobby Houck got hired, that eventually on his staff you're going to have Rob Fennessy again, and you're going to have Cooper come back to replace Shan Schillinger, who basically Bobcat legend replacing Grizz legend.
For sure.
It's an interesting dynamic. I'm excited to be around the guys a little bit the next couple weeks leading up to the spring game, and I know we're going to have conversations talking about spring ball going in. As of right now, the spirits are good. Everybody's kind of diving in. I think they're on spring break right now. When they come back, you're really going to see kind of a 2-week ramp up, and that's when things.
So the Grizz are on break right now.
They're on break right now. They come back next week.
I think I misstated that off the top. I thought they were on the spring break last week.
Spring break now, and then they've got a 2-week ramp up into the spring game, which will be on SWX on Friday night down in Hamilton, Friday, April 8th, I believe. So we'll really ramp up then, and we'll have some fun stuff coming out of Grizz camp. But the coaching staff will be fun to talk about, that's for sure.
He's Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz. I'm going to make him come on and talk some Masters next week.
Love it.
Until then, thanks for rolling along, man. Thanks for riding shotgun. It's been a cool couple weeks.
Always. It's been a fun ride, that's for sure.
Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 coming at you. What are some of the main storylines out of spring ball for both Montana and Montana State? And how about our Treasure State, Stars of the Week? The best individual performances around the state of Montana. Keep it right here. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Here with Tom. Window tinting is at an all-time high demand. So, Tom, how do people get a hold of you to get their car on the books at Aspen Sound?
Colter, well, at this time of year, we stay pretty busy with the window tints, so make sure just to give us a buzz, and we'll get you on the books. With the warm weather right around the corner, it's good to get in early rather than late.
Aspen Sound, located at 1300 West Broadway in Missoula.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
I'm all about keeping my family driving safe. Dad, pothole.
Got it.
So I insist we choose Les Schwab tires for safety services like brakes, steering, and alignment. Stuff those cheap tire centers don't offer. Because I want a backseat drive with confidence. Dad, speed check.
At the Les Schwab Spring Tire Sale, save up to $150 when you buy select tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires, celebrating 70 years of doing the right thing. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
Dreaming of summer fun? Stop dreaming. Visit any Farmer State Bank location to speak with a consumer lender about making your summer dreams come true. Farmer State Bank offers a full range of consumer loans for vehicles, boats, campers, and more. Rates are competitive and there's never an application fee. You can even apply online at farmersebank.com. Bring on summer fun. Farmer State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. An equal housing lender and member FDIC.
As the seasons change in Montana, it's critical to make sure your vehicle is in full working order. And that's why now is the time to take your rig to Crawford's Automotive. Crawford's Auto on West Broadway does any work you need on any vehicle you have. To make sure you're running soundly, take it to Crawford's Automotive. Get your brakes checked or replaced at Crawford's, and the job will be done right every time with Chase Crawford personally doing the work on your vehicle. Take your cars and trucks to someone you can trust. For all your automotive needs, it's Crawford's Automotive on West Broadway.
March into savings with Northwest Motorsports Markdown Madness. We're adjusting prices every day on the largest inventory of diesel trucks, lifted trucks, and adventure-ready SUVs. So check them out at nwmsbox.com. We're bringing special APRs to Montana all March long. That's right, special APRs all month long. Don't let the greatest selection pass you by. Get a truckload of savings on the greatest selection of trucks, and more trucks at Northwest Motorsport.
Help keep Missoula green by recycling your latex paint at Garden City Paint and Glass. Bring in your old latex paint where it will be weighed, packaged, and shipped to the recycling plant for a small fee. While you're there, discover Garden City's exclusive line of eco-friendly products from Dunn Edwards, a company with the only green LEED certified paint manufacturing facility in the world. Come see why Dunn Edwards paints have a legacy and a greener future at Garden City Paint and Glass. Keep the Garden City green, 3217 Brooks.
Just fully embracing my 22-year-old self today here on Nuanez Now. Shout out to all my Cali boys. Maybe you're listening on the podcast. Maybe you're listening on the live stream. Thanks for teaching me all about electronic music. This playlist brought to you by all my friends from Southern California from when I was at the University of Montana. You know who you are. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Back in the Northwest Motorsport studio. Northwest Motorsport has the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. You can visit either in the Garden City here at the corner of Stevens and Mount, or by visiting online at nwmsrocks.com. Colter Nuanez, thanks so much for hanging out with us here on your Tuesday. Missed anything the first hour? Our tournament takeover continued. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, kind enough to help us come put a bow on all of our travels from Boise, Idaho to Portland, Oregon to San Diego, California, then through Las Vegas back to Missoula, Montana. Appreciate Riley for riding shotgun with us. It's always fun traveling with him, broadcasting with him, taking in the sporting events with him, and then recapping it with him as well. You can find everything on the first hour from Nuanez Now, as always, on the Nuanez Now podcast. Proudly presented by Sportsbet Montana, as well as The Advocates. You want to stream the show? You want to listen on your various mobile devices, cell phone, tablet, laptop? You can always hit up our station website, 1029ESPN.com. Click on Listen Live, and you'll find the stream. If you want to be a part of the show, you have questions, comments, what does the Big Sky Conference need to do to close the gap when they get to the NCAA tournament in men's and women's basketball? What are your questions about Grizz or Bobcat Spring Ball? Any of that stuff, call us or text us, 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. And all guests will join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Really appreciate everybody for helping us get to Boise, Portland, and San Diego. It was very fun to roll all the way along the West Coast and check out March Madness games in two different venues, both the Moda Center as well as Viejas Arena in San Diego. Our tournament takeover sponsors include Stockman Bank. When you bank with Stockman, you receive personalized customer service, and your phone call is always answered by a live person. Stockman's highly skilled and personal bank staff is dedicated to making it easy to transfer your accounts and meeting your overall financial needs. Blending traditional Western values with modern conveniences and state-of-the-art technology, Stockman provides time-tested products and services from people who truly care about you and your financial success. Let's talk about some football. It's so funny the way things have evolved. When I first started in as a newspaper writer and sports writer, sports journalist, the Big Sky Conference tournament was often far-flung and or often directly local because it wasn't a neutral site. And it seemed about half the time of my first 7 years or so working in newspapers and other writing gigs, the NCAA tournament would be in Montana. Particularly on the women's side for the University of Montana women's basketball team. They more often than not hosted the tournament between my first 6 or 7 years there as a sports writer from 2006 to 2013 when Robin Selvig was still the head coach there for the Lady Grizz. And then Montana, the men, they hosted it a couple times, probably a handful of times actually, during that 5 or 6 year, 7 year span. And then also, I remember a couple tournaments being in Ogden, so drove down there to cover them. What I'm getting at, though, is it wasn't this comprehensive coverage plan like we have now at SkylineSportsMT.com, where now we go to the Big Sky Tournament and we are contracted by the Big Sky Conference to provide. This year I had the great pleasure of being on ESPN Plus for half an hour before each tournament day began. We also provide a set of feature stories for the Big Sky Conference that they run on their websites and that we run at Skyline Sports MT as well. So what I'm getting at is it used to be a lot easier to cover spring ball at the same time you were covering the Big Sky Tournament and the NCAA Tournament. Well, spring ball has sort of taken a back seat to that coverage these last couple years, and so that's the reason why we haven't dove into spring ball nearly as much as maybe we used to in the past. But let's do it right now. Let's dive into some spring football and talk about the Grizz first because they're a couple weeks into spring ball. Then we'll talk about the Bobcats because Montana State, they started spring ball today. So Andrew Houghton, our producer here at ESPN Missoula, he'll join me here in just a minute. But I do think that the Grizz have they've made great strides in certain areas since Bobby Houck returned. More than anything, I think that the greatest stride that the Grizz have made is in their expectation for excellence, in their understanding broadly and specifically of what the expectation has been and always will be at Montana, and that is that you need to be in the mix as a true national championship contender. You need to be in that conversation always because of the pride, the tradition, the fan base, the stadium, the conference, the footprint, the in-state recruits, all that sort of stuff. So I think that part of the equation has been solidified, and I think that's what Bobby Houck is so great at. I think that's what sets him apart than almost anybody that's ever coached Grizz football is his keen awareness of that dynamic. I also think, though, that the Grizz, from a personnel standpoint, from a systematic standpoint, have very defined weaknesses, which I actually think when you're entering an off season is a good place to be because you know exactly what you need and what exactly you should go get and exactly what you're looking for when it comes to spring ball. I've only been out to one practice. I only got to watch them for about 45 minutes. I'm hoping to get to another one here sooner than later. It is hard because they practice right now. I mean, they will be practicing at this time next week when they get back from spring break. But the main points of emphasis that people are going to be looking at, including the coaching staff, but also the fans and people that follow Grizz football, quarterback, always going to be a talking point. Running back, after they were decimated by injuries last year, how much does that depth, the experience that so many different guys got, how much does it fortify the run game? How much does the return of Marcus Knight help? The wide receivers, I think that they had kind of a down year last year. And how much of that, though, was just inconsistent quarterback play, I'm not sure. But then on the defense, I think that they can only really expect to be as good as they were a year ago. I don't really know how you can get better. But, Andrew, you watch this team, and I know you've been starting to dive into some of the spring ball stuff as well, and probably going to be sparing what we can make it to in terms of spring practices. But if and when we see them, because I'm sure we'll at the very least be there for the couple scrimmages, including the spring game in Hamilton on April 9th, we will certainly have a lot of things we're going to be wanting to watch. But when you think about this Grizz team now, what are the main points of emphasis or what should they be here in this spring session?
Well, I think the number one thing is the quarterback and sort of how that plays into the rest of the offense. I mean, when we're talking about the next steps that this team can take, I love the way you put it. I mean, the defense, you can't expect them to be any better, really, than they were last year. I mean, if they're at the same level, that's great. That's one of the top 5 defenses in the country. But we were talking all last year about how in the preseason there was this potential for the synergy between the defense and the offense where somebody would create momentum and then the offense would be able to pick up on it. And that was just probably the most disappointing thing about their season last year, is that the offense never really got to that point. So that's what I'm watching this year, is just, man, to be able to consistently take advantage of the things that the defense is giving them. And we'll see what happens with the personnel at quarterback, but that's got to be the biggest question.
That is such a great point, too, because I think that the style that Bobby Hauck wants to play, I think this is something that eludes a lot of people that observe and cheer on the Grizz, is they think that the missing link is to get a quarterback like an Eric Berrier, a guy that can light the world on fire. In fact, the missing link is only to just get a quarterback that can take advantage of those momentum swings. Andrew Sell was a really good quarterback when he was here at Montana, a Billings West product, and he led the Grizz to an undefeated season and a national championship game appearance in 2009. Now, Sully Boy was not necessarily going to take over the world, but when the Grizz would get that big pick or they'd have that big punt return, he could throw the deep fade to Mark Mariani to get a touchdown, or he could throw that halfback swing to Chase Reynolds and get the offense moving and be able to take advantage of those situations. So I think that a dynamic game-breaking type QB, when you have one of those in college football, then you almost have to play to that style, and I think that can almost take away from the style they want to play defensively. So I don't necessarily think they need a Vernon Adams or even a Dalton Sneed. They need a guy like an Andrew Sell who can just take advantage of the momentum when those moments are presented to them.
Well, and also have a good sense of the momentum himself, like just being able to hit the 7-yard hitch on 3rd and 6 consistently when you're backed up, when you need a first down. I mean, I think it would be really interesting if they got a guy like Eric Berrier or like Vernon Adams. And I think that's what they're shooting for, maybe with this Lucas Johnson kid that they brought in. But I think you're right. And, when we saw the offense be able to feed off the momentum, we saw it in 2 games. We saw it in Montana State and then the playoff game against Eastern Washington, probably their 2 best performances of the season, where the offense was not only able to feed off the defense, but also create some momentum of their own.
Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Our tournament takeover continues, and how about a revamping of one of our favorite fall segments, Hauck Highlights. It's presented by Ryan Holloway and Miller. No matter what you need when it comes to criminal defense, personal injury, Ryan Holloway and Miller should be your first call. Ryan Holloway and Miller. Paul Ryan's been practicing law in the Treasure State around the Garden City for almost 30 years, and excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan Holloway and Miller. Ryan Holloway and Miller, your Montana attorneys, as well as proud presenter of Hauck Highlights. I caught up with Bobby Hauck about a week and a half ago. Here's a replay of what he had to say before his team's 3rd spring practice from earlier this month. A sunny afternoon, Washington Grizzly Stadium. You're probably listening to this on a Wednesday here on Nuanez Now, but we're coming to you on a Friday down here. I'm with Montana head coach Bobby Hauck. And, Coach, it seems like you guys were just playing football in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and here we are, spring football. So what'd you like about the last couple months? What'd you guys get accomplished between your playoff loss and now back out here for day 3 of spring ball?
Well, that's a sign you're getting old when you start saying time flies. But it's good to be back out here. I like how our off season has been so far, and we've had some good practices and excited about today.
Winter conditioning always a huge proving ground for guys that play for the Grizz. So anything different you did this year, or was it status quo? What'd you think of the intensity of the workouts the last couple months?
Well, it's been good. In fact, our guys breezed through it pretty well, so I don't know if we're backing off or what. We've got to go analyze that. But our guys handled everything pretty well, and I think we're in good shape as far as the first few practices have shown.
Well, that was one thing I talked with Jace Lewis at the end of the year about last year. He was saying that the irony of the time off, the COVID year, all that stuff was this how supremely physically conditioned you guys were. It seemed like that during fall camp last year. It seemed like that during the season too. So do you feel like there's just been some carryover where everybody's been able to sort of maintain and then up their levels in that aspect?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that we look strong, we look fit. So, that lends itself to good preparation, good practice. What we need is improvement. So let's hope this spring, what you just mentioned, let's hope this spring that carries forth.
I know that there's an opportunity for guys to really make waves when it comes to the winter conditioning stuff in the weight room with their gains and stuff like that. Is there anybody in particular that stood out that had tremendous gains, or maybe that put themselves in a position to come prove themselves out here?
Well, I don't. It's so hard to judge over a month and a half in the winter. But our older guys look strong and ready to go, and our younger guys look like they need work, generally speaking.
Bobby Houck here on ESPN Radio. Let's just go position by position quickly, Coach. Quarterback is going to be what everybody's asking about. You got 6-year senior on his way out the door in Cam Humphrey, but you still have Chris Brown on the roster, Robbie Patterson. You guys bring in Lucas Johnson, a transfer from San Diego State. So what are you looking for in this quarterback competition, and how much progress can be made in spring?
Well, don't forget Dan Britt.
Of course, out of Vegas, yeah.
So we just want competition. Every day matters, and we need to make progress. We need to, and we'll talk about the quarterbacks. I'm going to say the same thing about every position. We have a lot of young guys, and we need to make progress and become better players.
Offensive line is always a huge priority, but losing your 2 tackles, how big of a concern is that?
Well, we'll see how we feel about the guys that are here now after spring practice, but I think they look good. They look the part, and I think we'll be all right.
It's been a developmental position in Montana for a long time on the offensive line. So now that you're here, been back for several years now, do you expect that element to have made progress? Just the development of some of the younger guys you guys have brought in?
Yeah, those guys take a long time to get ready to go play in a game and compete at a high level. As I always say, the guys we get here don't come out of high school ready to play at the Division I level. They're tall, athletic kids that need to have time in the weight room, or in some cases they're real big kids that need to take weight off and then get rebuilt. So hopefully that's what's going to transpire over the next 8 months.
Well, I got a group text with some guys that are pretty big Grizz fans, and the picture that came across after the first day of spring ball was a picture of Marcus Knight, and they said, praise the Lord, this guy is back. So it must be good to have an All-American running back, especially since that position got so banged up last year. Yeah, it's good to have some depth back at running back, and specifically Marcus. He won't get a whole bunch of work this spring, but those things take the amount of time they take. It's as different as we are individually, but good to have Marcus back and ready to go. And the other guy that people have been asking about is Junior Bergen, because he had such a great freshman year and he played so many different roles. Where are you guys going to be working him the most here during this spring period? Well, I think he'll play at wide receiver. That's where we recruited him, and he did a great job coming in and playing running back, and the return game is going to be a piece of it for him. He showed he's pretty dynamic there, so he's a versatile guy, and wide receiver will be his primary position. And speaking of Billings Senior, people are always asking about Gabe Sulser too. So is he back healthy, and what sort of progress can he make this spring? Well, he will be. Yeah. All that stuff takes time, but he'll be fine. On the other side of the ball, we're watching the defense right here, and these guys look pretty good physically. So a lot of guys return. You do lose a couple key members, but what do you think just overall the defensive unit, and is it possible to take the next step as a defensive unit since you guys were so good on defense last year? Yeah, I would say you could argue it was maybe as good a defense as we've ever had here at Montana last year, and so to say we're going to be better, I don't know. That really depends on how far we progress. We've got young guys that need to come in and make some plays for us, which means they've got to improve this spring and this summer, but we have a chance to be good on defense again, I think. And one guy I wanted to ask you about on the defensive line is Alex Gubner. We talked about his progression during the season last year, and he ended up being an all-conference guy, but it seems like now, coming into his junior year, he could really be, maybe one of those top-tier level interior defensive linemen. Well, I think he was a year ago. I mean, if my opinion counts, he was as good or better than anybody else in the league, so we kind of expect that to continue. He's had a dramatic rise from what he was when he walked in the door to what he is now, and
I think he's one of the better players in our conference.
And the defensive end spots, Justin Belknap and Joe Babros were two of the oldest guys I've ever covered. So how do you replace that sort of experience on the edge?
Well, it's college football. You know,
Right.
your seniors leave, and some of the younger guys need to step it up, and that's why we're out here practicing.
And Jace Lewis was so productive in that spot. Everybody asked you all offseason last year, how do you replace Dante Olson? Those inside guys didn't seem to really miss a beat. But with Jace moving on, who do you expect to sort of step up in that spot?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's why we're out here. We evaluate every day. Should be really competitive to see who gets to do that. I think that's a deep and group that has some ability in it, so we should be okay there. I don't know who that's going to be just yet. We're too early on.
And last question, just spring ball in general. Do you still have the same affinity for it? Do you like spring ball like you always have?
Yeah, I do. It's my favorite time of year. You get to coach them and get to watch a lot of growth, and I think this spring will be an example of that. As young as our football team is, with all the freshmen and sophomores out here, I think we'll get to see a lot of growth this spring.
I guess real last question, that you guys do have so many young guys. So what's the learning curve like when they're maybe in their just first or second spring balls?
Well, that's individual. You know, some guys pick things up fast, and some of them take a long time to understand and know what they're going to do. So we'll just come out here and work hard every day, and I think we have a group that's really willing to put in the work, so we should have good growth.
There you go, Bobby Houck on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hear from Montana State's offensive and defensive coordinators, but on the other side. We'll take a break here quickly, and we'll continue our conversation about spring football across the state of Montana. The Grizz are a couple weeks into spring ball. They're off this week, though, and the Bobcats are into spring ball as of today. A couple huge question marks on the other side of the Continental Divide. What's up with the quarterback spot for MSU, despite Tommy Mellott taking the world by storm down the stretch of the 2021 season? And how in the world do you replace Troy Anderson? That, plus our Treasure State Stars for the week on the other side. Keep it right here, Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Here with Tom. Window tinting is at an all-time high demand. So, Tom, how do people get a hold of you to get their car on the books at Aspen Sound?
Coulter, well, at this time of year, we stay pretty busy with the window tints, so make sure just to give us a buzz, and we'll get you on the books. With the warm weather right around the corner, it's good to get in early rather than late.
Aspen Sound, located at 1300 West Broadway in Missoula.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
This is Brandon G. Fowler, consumer and construction lender with Stockman Bank. We are proud to be the statewide sponsor of the Montana High School Association's sportsmanship program. At Stockman, supporting and encouraging our youth has always been important to us. We are excited to partner with an organization that promotes teamwork and good sportsmanship to Montana students of all ages, developing tomorrow's leaders through good sportsmanship today. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
Have you ever worried if you're up to snuff in the bedroom? Are you looking to skip the waiting lines and the admission at the pharmacy? Do you want effective male enhancement delivered right to your door? Palmer's Drug of Missoula has you covered. All you need is a prescription from a doctor and a home address for Palmer's Drug to ship to. If you want to improve your love life and get right in the bedroom, all while keeping it discreet, look into home delivery through Palmer's Drug. Palmer's Drug, your trusted local pharmacy in Missoula.
I'm all about keeping my family driving safe. Dad, pothole.
Got it.
So I insist we choose Les Schwab tires for safety services like brakes, steering, and alignment. Stuff those cheap tire centers don't offer. Because I want a backseat drive with confidence. Dad, speed check.
At the Les Schwab Spring Tire Sale, save up to $150 when you buy select tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires, celebrating 70 years of doing the right thing. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
Whether you're in the restaurant business or you just want to host any big event, J&V Restaurant Supply can make sure you have everything you need. J&V Restaurant Supply is your home for everything kitchen. Whether you're a bear or a bobcat, an eagle or a Scotty, J&V Restaurant has everything you might need. They have locations in Bozeman, Billings, and Great Falls. If you can't make it in, J&V also has a great website, jvrestaurant.com. Get everything you need for your next event at J&V, your restaurant specialists.
The Silver Slipper is the place to watch all the basketball madness this month. Monday through Friday happy hour from 5 to 7 p.m. Half off drinks, $1 off beer, and $1 off wine. There will be daily drink and food specials, plus the Silver Slipper Bracket Challenge with prizes for first through third place and a daily drawing for a gift card. Must be present to win. The Silver Slipper has over 55 TVs, so you won't miss a game. Head on down to the Silver Slipper, across from Walmart on Highway 93 in Missoula. The Silver Slipper is the place to watch all the basketball madness this month.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Each of the Big Sky Conference's representatives in the Big Dance ran into buzzsaws while a few more Big Sky teams remain alive in less prominent national tournaments. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. In the first round of the NCAA tournament, Montana State represented the Big Sky in men's and women's hoops. In the first game of Friday's session from San Diego, California, third-seeded Texas Tech caught fire and never let up, rolling 14th-seeded Montana State 97-62 in one of the largest margins of victory of any of the 32 first-round games. The Red Raiders raced to leads of 18-4 and 30-7, eventually leading by 25 at halftime and by as many as 37 in the second half. Texas Tech outlasted Notre Dame 59-53 to advance to the Sweet 16 while they'll play Duke. MSU's season finishes with a 27-8 mark. Later Friday from Stanford, California, the MSU women faced an even taller task. The 16th-seeded Bobcats took on number 1-seeded and defending national champion Stanford on their home court. MSU trailed 20-0 at the end of the first quarter and 23-0 before getting a bucket. The final margin ended at 78-37 in favor of the Cardinal. MSU's season finishes with a 22-13 record, while Stanford destroyed Kansas 91-65 to move into the Sweet 16. Northern Colorado, the Big Sky Tournament champion runner-up, has defeated Florida Atlantic and UNC Asheville to reach the Final Four of the college basketball invite, and Southern Utah plays UTEP tonight in the College Basketball Classic. This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory. What's up, Montana? Welcome back. A little SoCal music for you here on your Tuesday. Hope you're having an outstanding start to your evening. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Sorry we weren't here yesterday. We were catching planes all the way across the West Coast to try to get back to Missoula. So no more impromptu travel day absences here on Nuanez now for a little while. So that's one promise we can make. Stay tuned because we have a whole bunch of fun remotes coming up, including this Thursday and Friday. We'll be broadcasting live from Brett's RV and Marine. So between 3 and 6, you can swing on down and hang out with us. It'll be 4-station remotes. We'll have people rocking out for the Trail, the U, ESPN Radio right here, as well as Jack FM. So should be fun. We'll also have a couple remotes on behalf of Sportsbet Montana coming up as well. I was trying to decide if those are going to be in April or May. But that'll be fun, and we'll give you details on those coming up as well. Our tournament takeover, putting a bow on that thing. We were in Boise, Idaho all week, 2 weeks ago, and then we were in San Diego, California by way of Portland, Oregon this last weekend, checking out first the Big Sky Conference Tournament and then the NCAA Tournament. Tournament takeover brought to you in part by the Silver Slipper. Silver Slipper has tons of TVs to watch all the games on. They also have great tournament specials, daily drink deals, and great service. Only at the Silver Slipper across from Walmart on Highway 93 in Missoula. More of our spring football conversation coming up. Let's do our Treasure State Stars for the week. Treasure State Stars presented by Parkside Credit Union, highlighting some of the best individual performances from across the state of Montana. Treasure State Star number 1. Wes Keller, the head coach of the Rocky Mountain College women's basketball team. They were the last team standing from the state of Montana. They made it to the Elite 8 of the NAIA National Tournament. This in itself is a great story because it's a Frontier Conference team built on the majority of talent from the state of Montana, but also a little story of redemption and sort of a microcosm of the state of basketball as it is at the college level, even at the NAIA level. Rocky Mountain had a lot of tumult last year. A faction of players, most of whom didn't really play for the Bears, they went to the Rocky Mountain College administration and filed complaints against Wes Keller, the head coach. And the administration ultimately determined that these accounts were unfounded, and they decided to maintain Wes Keller. They also then fired a couple people in said administration, and then Wes Keller goes from a program that was at the bottom of the Frontier last year to the Frontier Conference champions. They won the Frontier tournament, and they won a couple games in the national tournament. So Wes Keller, a Helena native, coaching the Rocky Mountain College Battling Bears women's basketball team. He's our Treasure State star number 1. Treasure State star number 2, the Flathead wrestling teams. They swept the girls and boys titles at the Class AA wrestling tournament, at the all-class wrestling tournament that has been in the Class AA classifications. So Flathead was always so good at wrestling before Glacier became a thing. And that, the population reduction of Flathead High School probably impacted one single AA high school more than any other. It seems as if Bozeman High is still very good, even with the addition of Gallatin High. We'll see if that maintains, if there's some sort of stratification. But in Kalispell, Glacier's existence has really impacted the success of Flathead sports. But Flathead, back to its dominant ways in wrestling. They were really good at wrestling when I was in high school about 15, 20 years ago, and now they're back to being good as they sweep both the girls and boys AA titles. Treasure State star number 3, Treasure State star presented by Parkside Credit Union. Parkside Credit Union, one of the best places in western Montana to get a loan because Parkside Credit Union loves to say yes. Treasure State star number 3, a pair of in-state products who signed and or fully committed to the University of Montana men's basketball team. Rhett Reynolds signed his national letter of intent last week. He's a Class B standout from Shelby, stands 6'9", a guy that has some upside, come from the Class B ranks to join the University of Montana men's basketball team. And the other, a walk-on who signed, I can't remember what the direct or specific term is, but basically saying that he's coming to the University of Montana as a walk-on is Cade Bateman from Missoula Big Sky. By the way, the Missoula Big Sky boys, congratulations to them for their run at the Class AA tournament. A big deal for Big Sky to place third at the Class AA tournament. It's been a while since Big Sky took home some hardware at the AA tournament, so congratulations to Cade Bateman and the Eagles. Treasure State star number 4, a young man who joined us on this show last week. It's Braden Cook, Helena Capital senior. He led the Bruins to their 3rd ever Class AA state championship, and he was named the Gatorade Player of the Year last week. So congratulations to Braden. You want to hear his interview from last Tuesday, you can find it on the Nuanez Now podcast. Hour number 1, he joined us about 4:30, so about half an hour into that first episode from last Tuesday. You can check out Braden Cook, the recently anointed Gatorade Player of the Year. Treasure State star number 5, how about a pair of Montana State track athletes? These two continue to tear it up. Duncan Hamilton and Lucy Corbett of the MSU track team. They were among the stars during the indoor season. The outdoor season is already underway. And Hamilton, he ran a time of 8 minutes and 43.32 seconds in the men's 3,000-meter steeplechase to launch his outdoor season. That happened at the Franzen Classic hosted by Azusa Pacific over the weekend. Hamilton's time is the top mark so far. This is the first meet in the country for the outdoor season, but that's still the top mark in the United States at the collegiate level. So Duncan Hamilton, a Bozeman native running at Montana State, setting the bar high right out the gates. And Lucy Corbett, who also comes from Bozeman High, she had several standout performances at the same meet, the Franzen Classic at Azusa Pacific. First, Corbett had the top high jump of the event, breaking her own outdoor record with a clearance of 6'1¼ inch. That's 1.86 meters for those tracking at home. That mark right now tops in the nation and second all time on the Big Sky's outdoor performance list. So if Corbett has the same trajectory she had during the indoor season, she will likely be the all-time record holder in the Big Sky outdoor as well in the high jump. And oh, by the way, she can long jump a little bit as well. 19.675, so 19 feet, 6.75 inches. The 3rd best in program history, 20th best in the country at the time. Duncan Hamilton and Lucy Corbett each named the Big Sky Conference Outdoor Track and Field Athletes of the Week for the first week of the outdoor season. Treasure State star number 6, how about this? A young lady who we've talked about a lot on this show, but we haven't talked about her in a little while. It's Catherine Burkhoff, a Missoula Hellgate alum, one of the great prep athletes in the history of the state of Montana. Not hyperbolizing whatsoever there. 16 state championships, 16 all-class state records during her time at Missoula Hellgate. She set an American women's record, all-time, history of the United States of America, in the women's 100-yard backstroke on Friday She did it at the Aquatic Center, Aquatic Center in Atlanta. She's a junior at North Carolina State, and she ended up winning the gold medal in that event. Of course she did. She set the American record. And she also had 7 podium finishes at the national meet. So Catherine Burkhoff now a 4-time NCAA champion and has 19 All-American honors in her career. Her time, 48.74 seconds in the 100-meter back, making her the first woman ever to swim under 49 seconds, first American woman ever to swim under 49 seconds. So very cool for her. And she continues to push the pace. And maybe, just maybe, she'll have Olympic dreams, just like her father, David Burkhoff, who's a swimming icon in this community in Missoula and around western Montana, a guy who was a multiple-time Olympic medalist during his day as a champion backstroker himself. Treasure State star number 5, Alex Singleton, former Montana State standout linebacker. He signed with the Denver Broncos earlier this week, and he led the Philadelphia Eagles in tackles last year. And I was wondering if he's going to get picked up, but this is sort of that pivotal moment for guys in their NFL careers. They come in as undrafted free agents. Singleton went the CFL route, but then you get in the league, and then it's all about getting that second or third contract in the league. And Alex Singleton, he did that. So congratulations to him. We'll have Alex swing by sometime soon. Great friend of mine, great friend of this show. Always fun. Just got to make sure we got the beat button ready. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. How about some more of our conversation about spring football? Montana State, I think there's 2 questions for spring ball. Two overwhelming questions when it comes to personnel. The main question is, can the Bobcats harness the momentum of a national championship run a year ago in Brent Vigen's first season at the helm? And there's a lot of nuance to that, a lot of different realms you could take that down. But in terms of tangible personnel, position group questions, I think the 2 questions at Montana State right now are, 1, what the heck's going on at quarterback? You had Matt McKay enter the transfer portal after Montana State lost to the Grizz. You had Tommy Mellott take the world by storm, lead the Bobcats to 3 playoff victories and a bid in the national championship for the first time in 37 years. You had Tommy Mellott go down with an injury in the first quarter of that national championship game. You had Tucker Rovig come in and not be able to perform up to par. Rovig graduates. He's now at Idaho as a graduate assistant. Casey Bauman, who's been in the mix as a starting quarterback at MSU the last couple years, he is also into the transfer portal. Tommy Mellott had off-season surgery coming out of that national championship game. He'll be limited in spring football, at least early on here as the Bobcats get underway today. And then you have the addition of Sean Chambers, a former starter all 3 of his seasons at the University of Wyoming. So just very interesting that Montana State brought in someone to push Tommy Mellott. I know why they did it. They did it for depth because Mellott runs a lot. That kind of guy is going to get hurt a lot. Chambers has also been injury prone. I think it gives them the ability to have multiple quarterbacks on the field at once, like they did when Travis Johnson was sort of a slash player for them a couple years ago. But does it disrupt the harmony of a locker room? I'm not sure. Taylor Housewright, the offensive coordinator for MSU, he answered a couple questions about Sean Chambers' addition and Montana State's status at quarterback earlier today. Here's Taylor Housewright, second-year offensive coordinator at Montana State.
How's Sean Chambers fitting in with the team?
Good, great kid. Yeah, great kid. He's awesome, and he's a lot like Tommy and those other guys. They just want to win, be part of a good program, and I think he's done a great job. Slow at first when you're an older guy, transfer and everything. So he's got different experiences, and I think that room is key. They compete against each other, but they are friends, and they know each other, and they support each other, and that's what we had last year, and that makes a difference. Your quarterback's your leader, so if they see that, then, or if guys see them being like that, it just transitions into everybody else.
What separates Sean from a quarterback like Tommy? Just kind of differences.
Size, obviously. I think that's one thing. I think, Sean was a really good baseball player, so it's funny you see, he was a catcher, and almost got drafted at high school, I think. And then Tommy was this track kid, never really played baseball, so it's funny, like questions, and Sean's older, Tommy's younger. Sean doesn't have a girlfriend, Tommy does, so get some interesting conversations there. And but I think really it's just he's been through battles, no different than kind of an experienced guy in the Army. You know what I mean? They've seen it all. They're excited, but they're even kill, and I think they're both very, very intelligent, like the other guys, and they're both willing to do whatever it takes to win.
And will we be seeing Tommy and Sean compete this spring ball, or is Tommy still kind of nursing back from that injury?
Oh yeah, they'll be competing. Yeah, Tommy's good to go. Yeah, he recovers different than the average human, so he's a pretty good athlete, but he'll be out there rocking and rolling.
Taylor Housewright, he's always funny. Yeah, always a good soundbite. Down the stretch, he was a little humbled after his team looked a full mess against Montana at Washington Grizzly Stadium, but then they emerged, and it was a great job coaching by Vegan and Housewright to get Tommy Mellott ready to make that run. Montana State spring ball discussion continues here on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. The continuation of our tournament takeover, which is presented by Aspen Sound. Cars and boat stereos, window tinting, auto starts, and more. Visit Aspen Sound in Missoula on Broadway or visit aspensound.com today. The other huge question in Bozeman, how the hell do you replace Troy Anderson? And it's not just him. You got to replace one of the better defensive tackles the school's had in the last 10 years in Chase Benson. One of the best single seasons, at least, by a defensive end in the history of the program, in Daniel Hardy. And on down the line, Trey Webb, a guy who could have gone to Notre Dame, instead comes with the Bobcats to play safety. They had a slew of talent defensively, led by number 15 in the middle. Willie Matt Garza, the first-year defensive coordinator, took that question head on when it comes to addressing how do you replace a superstar.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have guys that are returning that, played Mike linebacker like he did. We have guys that are returning that played defensive end. They did a good job of really developing depth last year. And now we're back on that process, because we have guys that can step in and play. We'll see if they can play at the level of, that's hard. There's not very many people around the country that can do what that young man did. And they can run as fast, as big as he is and stuff like that. So I don't want to be, set the standard or the bar too high, because it's hard to get guys like that. But we have guys returning that have the ability to make plays, that know the scheme, that know the process, that have bought in already and have continued to buy in. And those guys are establishing themselves within each position unit, defensive backs, corners, D-line, linebackers that are establishing themselves as leadership. And so I think we'll find that productivity. We'll work on it every day.
Willie Matt Garza, first-year defensive coordinator for Montana State. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. What's going on the rest of the week? We'll let you know. Keep it right here. ESPN Radio.
You already know Tagliari Delicatessen has the best sandwiches in all of Montana. Heck, even People Magazine and the Food Network say so. But Tagliari Deli has more than just the most delicious sandwiches this side of the Mississippi. Stop into the shop on the corner of Beckwith and Higgins to check out all they have to offer. Tagliari takes pride in offering the best selection of imported old world wines that are sure to please a variety of palates. Pair the wine with a sandwich, a cheese, a meat plate, or both. Stop in to Tagliari Deli today.
Part of the glory of building a business comes from leaving a legacy to ensure your business continues thriving into the future. Have you asked yourself lately, what is your plan? Forming a personalized business succession plan is essential to know the passion you put into your business will carry on. Nick Tabor at Westpac Wealth is here to help you navigate all your business succession and retirement planning needs. Give Nick a call at 728-6699 and keep the spirit of possibility vibrant while making your future more tax efficient with a personalized business succession and retirement plan for you.
It's time to gear up for spring sports and adventure at Bob Ward's. Save now on new gear for soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, and more. Hit the links with new golf apparel, clubs, bags, and more. Everything you need for any spring sports is in stock now, with more arriving daily at Bob Ward's. Grab the latest styles from top brands in the athletic department. Get technology and style in the newest footwear from Brooks, Hoka, Under Armour, and all your favorite brands. Even our camping and water sports department are stocked with new gear. Gear up at Bob Ward's. Sports and outdoors, Montana style.
It's game day. Get ready for action. Fast breaks, slam dunks, buzzer-beating three-pointers, and more. Can you see all the game day excitement? Really see it. If you wished your vision was clearer, Vance Thompson Vision's world-class team and experienced doctors can help. They use the most advanced technology to provide you with the best possible outcome for your eyes. Request your free laser vision consultation from the premier LASIK and cataract surgeons in Montana. Visit VanceThompsonVision.com today for more information.
Like most Montanans, we love a good steak. And because we're the Montana Club, we take the steaks we serve very seriously. We're confident to say that our custom-grilled steaks are as good a steak as you're going to get. Now we're proud to add regularly sourced, naturally raised Castle Rock bison ribeye to our selection. And remember, the Montana Club steak entrees include the sides. Come into the Montana Club today for an unrivaled steak experience. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Here at Florence Coffee Co., we are proud to serve the finest flavors under the big sky, like our smooth and delectable cold brewed toddy coffee. Florence Coffee's fresh brewed toddy coffee is known for its low acidity and smooth flavor. Served over ice, add your favorite flavor or an iced coffee like no other. Try one today at any of our Floco locations around Western Montana and visit us at florencecoffeeco.com.
Florence Coffee Company.
Nuanez now on ESPN Radio.
What's up, Montana? Happy Tuesday. Hope you're having a great start to your evening. Maybe you're outside enjoying the sunshine. I can smell golf in the air. So today's the official first day of spring, so can't wait to get out on the links. Hopefully you have something you're looking forward to as well as the winter comes to an end and spring begins. Nuanez now broadcasting to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Our tournament takeover continues. It's presented in part. This is a fun new partner, the M Store. Grizz Nation's favorite outfitter is the M Store, where they're all Grizz all the time. And now the M Store has a brand new location in downtown Missoula. Come check out the new storefront located on the corner of Higgins and Broadway. The M Store in Missoula has been your Grizz gear headquarters for more than 10 years, offering some of the most original University of Montana gear you'll find anywhere in the Garden City. Next time you're downtown, swing in the corner of Broadway and Higgins. Come to the M Store today and wear what the Grizz wear, or you can shop at montanamstore.com. Tomorrow, Raheem Seabrook will be rolling. We'll be talking NFL. He's got some real-life stories on St. Peter's. He grew up just down the way from the Peacocks, the Cinderella of this year's NCAA tournament. And we'll also find some other fun stuff to talk about as well. Raheem won't be able to make it on Thursday and Friday because his kiddos are on spring break, but we will be broadcasting to you from Brett's RV and Marine on Thursday and Friday as well. Appreciate you being here today. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 4 p.m. In the meantime, have yourself a wonderful evening. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio.
Are you a sports fan who loves to win? Get in on the action with